Hi, I'm Marian Haf and I'm a printmaker working from Ceredigion. I wasn't too sure where to begin with discussing my work, so I thought I'd start with my latest project, which was an exhibition for the facade of Porthcawl Pavilion. The work is a series of collages made from collagraphs. The collages were photographed and digitally printed into posters. I predominantly work with collagraphs. I begin with transferring the image onto tracing paper, which is then put onto mount board, which I use for my plate. The mount board is then manipulated by scoring and peeling at the layers and drawing in with an etching needle. All these marks and tones hold the ink differently. Once I've finished manipulating the board, I will seal it with some shellac, which gives it a bit more durability, and it is cut out. I've got quite a few collagraphs to choose from by now, and they are predominantly intaglio collagraphs. This is where the ink is applied liberally to the surface of the plate. Once this is done, I then go in with a bit of cleaning gauze or scrim. I kind of work the ink in and polish it off kind of with this circular movement. It gets pushed into all those lovely grooves and textures that were made on the plate, but also then lifting the excess off from the smoother areas. Knowing when to stop comes with a bit of practice, but it's usually at this point where I can just about see it coming through. I then go in with some tissue paper to lift the final amount of ink off. This is just like a light polish to work away the scrolly marks left by the scrim and to just lift any other excess off before printing. Now on to do the same for the legs. it's now ready for its journey through the press with some damp paper. I often use embossing as well in my work, either a woodcut liner or laser cut ply embossing. I really enjoy the quietness of the embossing and how on a closer inspection there's more to be revealed and maybe a second dialogue to have with the piece. The Porthcawl exhibition was a real treat and the perfect opportunity to realise and to play with an idea that had been swimming around in my head for many years. With its location being so commanding of the sea and its use as a theatre, I thought I'd bring my my love of birds and fancy dress into one. As a child, my grandmother had a postcard from Spain on the wall in the hallway. It would amuse me with every visit and I would sit there studying it. And I've been toying with the idea of doing some fancy dress birds for a while, many years. They've got a budgie with a frilly chest up in the studio wall. It's probably been there 3 years. So it was great to be able to realise this idea for such a fitting location. As I've already touched on the embossing, I thought I'd delve in a little deeper now. I've been doing a series of word-based pieces with the embossing of hymns, nursery rhymes and songs from my childhood. This one here is the anthem that I did for a lady in the village. It's a simple combination of blind embossing and gold leaf, 24 carat. I really enjoy working with gold leaf and have done for a few years now. Arglwydd Dyma Fi was the first one I made in this series of embossed word prints. I'd like to read from a statement I wrote about the piece. I hope you don't mind. Gwahoddiad was the first hymn. We stood and as one voice and one entity we sang with strength, passion and pride. The words gave us a release and a voice to our grief. Gwahoddiad has long been one of my favourite hymns, so I stopped to listen to witness this moment. I looked around at the sea of faces and to the tear-filled eyes. We were all crying. The emotion was palpable and ashamed and all-encompassing. I didn't want it to end. There was so much weight and comfort and warmth in those moments. I was sat in a heaving chapel next to my husband and siblings, surrounded by our community, family, friends, acquaintances and strangers. We had all gathered to pay our respects to a much-loved character of the village and a close friend of my mother's. My recent works have been an exploration into these feelings of heritage, togetherness, community, belonging, place, loss, warmth and more, through the words of familiar songs, hymns and nursery rhymes of my childhood, and life in rural Wales, combined with the familiar motifs and textures of quilt work. I've been heavily embossing these familiar words into the velvety paper, the paper happily yielding to the forms of the letters and words. I find it particularly pleasing the way the words become a part of the paper rather than sitting on the surface. They are now its fabrics and textures. Much like these words are the fabric and texture of me. With subsequent journeys through the press, the words quieten down, but there is no erasing. It's in these successive journeys that I lay on the quilt-inspired collagraph motifs and shapes that evoke feeling of warmth, weight and comfort in me. It is these that draw the viewer in for their quiet conversation. I've also embossed a little bit of Lawr y Lan y Môr in one piece, and Morris y Gwynt ac Ifan y Glaw that my gran would sing to me in another one. I've also done Hen o Hen Blant Bach. I think I've done 3 variants of this one. And another little one of the anthem. This piece, Cwmponin Dau, was selected to be part of the Woolwich Contemporary Print Fair back in November, December. A real honour and privilege to be a part of such a prestigious event in London, even if it was online this year. I thought I'd now go on and show you from where I work. This is the shed I've got at the end of the garden. It's not very big, and only half of it is mine. The other half is my husband's. He built it about 4 years ago. It's been great over this past year when we've had the kids home for quite a long time. So having everything so accessible at the end of the garden has been amazing, just amazing. Over the first lockdown, my husband was home for the first 10 weeks, which meant I could work as much as I needed to. And I did make the most of that opportunity. The shed's only small, but I've got a little press in the window, and I happily move things around. So I've got room for packing or putting up a virtual stall, which I did at the beginning. These virtual markets were a lot of fun, actually. After setting up the stall the evening before, I was thinking to myself, what am I doing? This seems a bit ridiculous. But they were a lot of fun. There was a sense of community, of coming together with other makers, and they were really successful. The online community really came behind us and gave us that boost that we needed. And I think I've done 3, and they've been vital sources of income over this past year. A delight. Also from the first lockdown period came the idea of setting up an online tutorial. I think I'd been sharing some process videos, and the response was quite sizable, and I thought, well, I think there might be a market here or an appetite for some online tutorials. So it's a really simple idea. It's an hour's WhatsApp call, video call, face-to-face, one-to-one. And in that hour, I take the viewer through my making process. This is a little video that I shared on Instagram, sharing what comes in the pack. So each pack will come with a card with sort of saying thank you and how to get a hold of me and the general gist of things. It also comes with one reference print. I've done it just in tissue paper to minimise the use of plastic. I don't have any cellulose packaging for this size. So that's number 1, that's the relief one. And then number 2 is here, and that's the intaglio one, again in tissue paper. 2 bits of mount, 1, 2, protecting the paper. Sorry, I got a visitor. I was saying 2 bits of mount and 4 pieces of paper. I've got 2 ivory, it's Fabriano Rosa Spina, and there's 2 white. Also, which I forgot to say, is the tissue paper around these guys you can reuse to clean the plates. That's what I use anyway. Okay. I've really enjoyed these tutorials. I've been doing them since May. I think I release about 5 a month, and they all sell out. And it's been the opportunity to meet people in this time where it's impossible to do so, isn't it? We're not going anywhere. I've had a couple, I think maybe 3 from America join me. I'm waiting back on a lady from Brazil. Some German ladies, Irish. I think I've had 1 Scot, and then a splattering of Welsh and English. It's just a delight. It's an hour I thoroughly enjoy. Hello, so this is me in the shed. I thought I'd pop on to tell you about where I got started and my background, as so to speak. I did a degree in fine art in painting in Cheltenham. I graduated back in 2004 after a year of foundation in Carmarthen. And after my degree, I did very little in the way of arts for about 6 years until Sam, my eldest, came along. So in 2010, I started joining a local print group. They meet in the next village. It's really close and it's just an undirected group. They have a lovely Hawthorne press, and it was an opportunity to leave the house and have a cup of tea in peace and to focus on myself, I guess, because those early days of motherhood, it's quite easy to get lost, isn't it? So then for 6 years I went back and forth when I could, in between having 2 more kids, Seren and Griff. I was also working part-time, so it was we'd meet on a Sunday morning and a Thursday, sort of every other, it wasn't every week. And I'd really look forward to those meetings. And then once I had Griff, then I gave up my part-time work. I worked as an arts and crafts play worker for a children's charity, so I would manage a scrap store and deliver workshops for kids. And before that, I worked in the local primary school. So after having Griff, I gave up working for Ray Ceredigion, and when he was 2 and started going to the Ysgol Feithrin, I started taking the printmaking a bit more seriously. I would dedicate that time that he was in Meithrin to developing my practice. The shed was built and I got a little press from a loan from my mum. And it's been steadily building since then, so it's very early days and I'm only just beginning my journey, I guess, into becoming a printmaker. And it's only really in the last 2 years, whilst Griff has been in school and I've been able to dedicate a good chunk of time to my practice, that things have stepped up again in work, I guess, and in what I'm doing. I've been very fortunate to have exhibitions across Wales, group exhibitions and a couple of solo ones, in Moston in Llandudno and Gallery in Caernarfon, Art in the Hall in Llanarthony, and with Craft in the Bay, the Makers Guild in Cardiff. I think I've been a member for a couple of years now, and to have that support behind you is great. It's given me such a boost in confidence as well. There's a wealth of knowledge there you can tap into. I'm very grateful for it, and to have a permanent spot in a gallery in Cardiff for an artist so rural as I am, it's is also great. And the support and the response to my work there, I think it's fair to say that it's been good. I sell quite regularly, which I'm really pleased about. Yeah, it's a good thing. So what I wanted to show you talk about next was some commission work that I've done. I was approached by Found Gallery in Brecon to develop a piece for them, which I'll talk about in the next slide. And also I did a commission for a local gin distillery down in south of the county, near Aberteifi. So they're coming up next. Here's the piece I made for Found Gallery. The old building used to be a shop called Ships and Sealing Waxes, which was taken from the Lewis Carroll poem, The Walrus and the Carpenter. Punch wanted the poem illustrated, so I've made the 12 characters, most prominent characters from that extract, and they've been placed together with embossing of choice pieces from the poem. And this is Caredig, a character I made for the distillery in the Welsh Wind. The series was called Stranger Things, and there was also Marian, and there was a third called Brynach, which I don't have a picture, sorry. I'm also very happy to take private commissions. This was the last one I made just before Christmas of a Welsh mountain sheep ram. In commissions, I really like the fact that you are pushed in a direction that you would normally go, and you have this opportunity to realise somebody else's ideas and to bring it to life for them. It's also very satisfying fulfilling a brief and bouncing ideas back and forth between other people. I take a lot from it. My work can be quite varied in subject matter, but usually there's this line of nostalgia running through most of my pieces, living or bringing back past memories or thoughts, revisiting times that have been. I'm sure most of it's with rose-tinted glasses, I'm sure. I'm not quite sure why I'm so nostalgic. This piece is no exception. This one looks back over my degree show, where I made a installation out of microcrystalline wax, which is like a really white wax. It was quite a big piece. It was 30 feet long, I think, by 8 foot tall, and it was a series of cast reliefed flying ducks, like the ceramic ones that was popular in the 1930s and 70s. But they were all white, made from wax, on a embossed white waxed wallpaper. There must have been over 100 of these ducks, dozens of groups of them, flying sporadically all over this quiet wallpaper. I think this is where my love of embossing comes from. I think the aesthetic of the quiet beauty of a relief has been there since the beginning of my work, and it's funny now, isn't it, 20 years on, that it still holds an interest and a fascination for me. There's something in the quietness, I think, and the intimacy, and the fact that you have to be so close to the piece to appreciate what's happening. In this piece here, it's a woodcut embossing of bamboo with the 3 ducks, them holograph ducks, placed on top. I really enjoy this piece, and I have one up in my living room. I really nod back to college days, uni days. Looking forward now, I thought I'd discuss a little bit about what I have or what I'd like to do in the near future. Last summer was glorious, wasn't it? And we've got a little allotment down in the village, and we spent a lot of time down there. It was a haven, somewhere to go. I think it was true for many as well. We'd look out to the garden, didn't we, for solace and escapism. And over that time, I'd made some documentation of some of the produce I was growing. I made some rubbings of a cabbage, and I've taken some pictures of our leeks. I'm still eating the leeks, and I hope to make a series of prints from them. I did manage to make one print in the summer of a stripy beetroot, but I really need to forge the time now to carry on with the idea and to develop the others I've got in mind. Also on the to-do list is to develop a new tutorial. I've realised over these last few months that most of the people joining me in the tutorial I currently have are predominantly printmakers already, people that maybe haven't had any success with collagraphs or haven't tried collagraphs, but are already quite established in their practice. So this new tutorial will be really delivered and marketed towards beginners. I want to make it super easy for a total beginner to be able to experience the joy of a collagraph. I'm developing it to be a relief collagraph tutorial, so there's no need for a press. It can be a print can be obtained with just a spoon, and it will be like a little package that has everything you need in it. So there'll be like a one-stop shop. So I'm looking forward to that. But what I'm most excited and looking forward to is, once everything is safe and the time is right, is getting back out there and doing a bit of face-to-face teaching, especially with some kids. Here's my daughter Sarah making her first intaglio dry point. Also coming up is some work for Ceredigion Museum in Aberystwyth. I was lucky enough to win a tender to develop a series of images for them from their collection that will be translated into merchandise. It was meant to start early this year, like January, February, but things have been moved on till April. They might be moved on again, I'm not sure. There hasn't been much in the way of talks yet. It all depends on how things are. But I'm really looking forward to this one. As a young girl, I started making some t-shirts for family and friends, and I dreamt that they would be stocked in the museum shop in Aberystwyth. It's my hometown. So to have this opportunity to develop these images for them and for it to be used for merchandise for the museum is kind of fulfilling a childhood dream. So yeah, it's going to be a good year. I've got lots to keep me busy, and there's also a couple of exhibitions that I hope will be able to take place. If it's safe to do so, isn't it? There's no point rushing these things. So all in all, plenty to do, and thank you very much for listening.